who believed that native music, wherever he lived, was as important, if not more, than the Western music that he had studied. Well, today I want to tell you about an Australian, New Zealand composer by the name of Alfred Hill. Alfred was born in Melbourne in 1870, but when he was very young, like 2 or 3 years old, they moved to New Zealand, and that's where he was raised. His father was a bandmaster, so he was surrounded with music and rehearsal schedules and everything that encompassed. So he grew up with band, which is brass and woodwinds, but he himself became a violinist, and he was good. He understood music, he loved music, and he later on went on to Leipzig in Germany to study music, which is where you would go if you want to be serious. It was not necessarily Germany, but Europe. He got a great education in composition with counterpoint. It was definitely late romantic German music that would have influenced him at that time. Once he was done with his education, he went back to New Zealand and he threw himself into the Maori music and culture. He was working closely with the Institute of Maori Studies at Rotorua. This was at a time when Indigenous music was often dismissed or exoticized, but he actually treated this as serious material. It wasn't like, oh, I will do them a favor. No, he was very serious and appreciated the depth of this music. During this time, he created his first string quartet built on Maori themes. This was one of the earliest works in the region to integrate Indigenous musical ideas into European classical form. It wasn't decorative, it wasn't borrowed, it wasn't made light of. It was structural, thematic, and it was a very respectful synthesis. Now, this did not stop just at Maori music. He went back to Australia and actually started doing the same. He started studying the Aboriginal music. He also went to different islands and he studied the New Guinea original music there as well. He was studying patterns, he was studying the rhythms, he was studying the melodic lines that they had, but also the ceremonial functions that this music had. What was it saying? Why was it saying that? And how were they going about this? And then, as we've seen with some other composers, he was also deeply engaged in Australian folk songs. He believed that was the truth. And we've seen that before, that's what the real music is. That's what people's real insight is on life. He believed that serious music really needed to be grown from a local source to be genuine. Indigenous and folk traditions were foundational. They're not peripheral. And national music must reflect actual life experience. As for his love life, he married a woman by the name of Sarah Bruce in 1891. They had 3 children. One of them became a full-time singer, but they only were married, they were married for 26 years, and then he divorced her in 1917, and the following year, he married Mary, a former student, and they were married until he passed away. He settled down in Australia, and he was a composer, and he did a lot. But he was not just a composer. He really became a cultural leader, being foundational in creating important establishments culturally. He helped found the Austral Orchestral College. He also helped create the Australian Opera League. He also helped create or found the Sydney Repertory Theatre Society. That's a lot. This really helped transform Australia from a land where they were borrowing and importing culture to a place that had their own place to perform their own cultural identity, to see who they were on their own. Very important. He was a big believer that art, and his thing was music, could bring people together of all nations, of all backgrounds. I mean, we can hear this through his music, but one way that he did this in a very grand scale, he conducted a choir for 10,000 voices. But it wasn't just that. It also included 10 massed brass bands. This must have been such a loud experience, but how amazing to have been inside that much music and all these people playing together, singing together, one piece of music. To him, this was music as a community identity, uniting performers and audiences on an unprecedented scale. He was extraordinarily prolific. He wrote symphonies, string quartets, chamber ensemble pieces. He wrote operas. He wrote choral works. He was very busy, working a lot on establishing cultural places and bringing people together. But he really was a composer at heart. That's what he wanted to do. And he was so prolific and continued to compose well into his older age. His contributions to the country, to culture, were formally recognized. He received the Officer of the Order of the British Empire, and he also received the Companion of the Order of St. Michael and St. George. These acknowledged both his artistic output and his service to cultural life across Australia. Australia is so grateful to him, and on his 90th birthday, the Sydney Symphony Orchestra hosted a concert for him where they performed his music. Imagine that. How lovely that must have felt. Just to think, to hear your own work, your own contribution performed back to you in such a way of honor. Few composers have had a closure like this. And then as he is 90 and this is performed, not much longer after that, also at the age of 90, he passes away. He did not chase modernism. He did not even chase prestige. What he did, he tried to build a musical culture from the ground up, listening first, going to study what was there already, what are the foundational blocks that have been set long before we Westerners came. And then he included that in the most respectful way and built a program from the ground up. He proved that Indigenous music and folk music could be a true foundation of serious music. He did it so eloquently. There's so much to listen to, but go and find something and listen to something by Alfred Hill.